Hey everyone, welcome to our webinar today on Embedded Analytics Made Simple. We have Brian and Tony from Cube, and then joining us from Explo is Andrew Chen, the co-founder and COO. So we're super excited. But before we get started, just a few quick notes. You can ask us your questions in real time. Simply enter them, click submit, and we'll get those answered during the Q&A portion of the webinar. We'll have the recording available on demand right after the live show. And if you have any feedback, we would love to hear that. Tell us how we did and take the quick survey at the end of the webinar. And today what we'll be discussing is a short overview of Cube. We'll be diving into what Explo offers, and then we'll be showing you a demo on how to build beautiful dashboards with Cube and Explo, and then answering all your questions. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it up to Brian to kick things off. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, thanks, Nathan. Yeah, everybody. Hey, if you haven't seen me before here, my name is Brian Bickle. I'm the VP of Strategy and Alliances here at Cube. Look after all of our partnerships in the space, including with great companies like Explo, and work very closely with Andrew, his team, on this relationship. So I'm happy to be here working with them today. But before we get started on Explo, let me go ahead and run through what is Cube. If you guys aren't familiar with that, or if you're joining us for the first time or new to the webinar series. So Cube is a universal semantic layer. And if you aren't familiar with semantic layers, or you're just starting to hear a lot about them on LinkedIn, or maybe you're not quite sure what they do or how they fit into your business, really the whole idea behind Cube and the semantic layer is that we help companies make data more consistently organized and more accessible for whatever their data-driven use cases are. Typically, we sort of boil that down into three major areas where we work with customers. Those are usually on embedded analytics solutions, like what we're going to talk about today. Maybe situations where there's a complicated BI or analytics environment, and you're trying to connect multiple BI tools or connect multiple upstream data warehouses and provide some kind of level of consistency across all that. And then more recently, we're starting to see this use case emerge where customers are building AI agents on top of Cube and using Cube to ground the LLM reasoning power with more institutional context and knowledge, so that it doesn't just make up facts about your business. And maybe to kind of step into where semantic layers came from and why this idea is sort of popular again, because if you're an industry veteran, you may have heard about semantic layers, and maybe you started hearing the phrase semantic layer 15 years ago in systems like Teradata. And back then, we were talking about just building a set of views over a database. But really the modern sort of idea of the semantic layer is sort of coming back because of this sort of environment we're all in, where there are a growing number of data warehouses and databases and different stores of data, whether those are cloud data warehouses, data query engines on top of lake houses or data lakes, maybe time series databases, or even just kind of standard old relational database management systems. We're sort of being asked to deal with more and more of these in the data engineering landscape. And then on the consumer side, we're also seeing customers that are having more of a wide interest in using data across multiple BI tools. Maybe that's a department level differences. Maybe you've got a finance department that's in love with Power BI, and maybe you've got a product team that really loves preset or superset or something like that. But the net of it is, we're seeing situations where we've got this many to many data chaos is how we think about it, where there are more sources out there, and then there are more downstream applications, and then we're always sort of being asked to do more with this and try to make some sense of the modeling. And the way that Cube starts to address some of that is by sitting in between all the various data sources we're talking about, and then the downstream use cases, and providing really 4 key sets of functionality. And those functionalities are kind of what we think of as the 4 pillars of the semantic layer. Inside that, we have data modeling, which is the sort of core thing that a semantic layer needs to do. Inside Cube, that is a code-first experience. You can define your data model in JavaScript, in YAML, and now in Python with some Jinja templating capabilities to do dynamic data modeling. That's really powerful. This is all version controlled, and this is all sort of managed in branches and gives you some really nice SDLC for auditing and things like that. And another kind of interesting thing to mention here is this is truly a sort of dynamic data model for things like time series aggregations. And it also helps prevent some really kind of pernicious data modeling problems like fan traps and chasm traps that you can get unintentionally, data modeling straight in a data warehouse. So the data modeling powers or data modeling capabilities are sort of, table stakes for semantic layer, but it's something that the Cube does really well. Access control is a big part of semantic layers, and Cube provides access control in the form of a role-based access control scheme that can handle things like column level masking, restricting rows by row level security, dynamic rewrites of queries to obfuscate things, and some other really powerful capabilities that are really handy for multi-tenancy. And I think Tony will probably talk about that in the demo later here. We also provide a caching layer. The caching is all custom developed. It's a product that we call Cube Store that is a part of Cube. It's built on Rust and it's very fast. That is an aggregate aware pre-aggregation engine, meaning that if you choose to enable it, we will manage aggregations for you and refreshing them, rolling up data, and serving very fast queries back to whatever you're connecting Cube to. And finally, everything leaves Cube via our set of APIs, which are our SQL API, which speaks PostgreSQL, and REST API and GraphQL API. And all of those are quite useful for the different downstream applications that you might have. Whether you are in an environment where you need to build some customer-facing dashboards, like what we're going to talk about today with Explo, and then maybe you also have some internal analytics, or maybe you have an operations team that uses a different tool, and you all want them to use the same data, and you want them to have the same general sort of caching performance, and then also have the same security model. That's kind of the big idea behind the semantic layer. And again, just to kind of like reiterate, what customers are typically buying and why they're buying it. Yeah, I mean, data modeling on multiple databases and against multiple BI tools, there's a lot of opportunity for data to become inconsistent if you're defining data models within the downstream BI tools. For instance, again, if you have multiple BI tools and they all have their lightweight semantic layer, then your metrics can get out of consistency pretty quickly. So moving those all upstream into a single semantic layer is one way to maintain data consistency. Security is provided by the access control scheme, and the same situation, defining individual access control policies inside downstream tools leaves a lot of room for mistakes on access control or inconsistencies that you're not expecting. And with our caching engine, we provide quite a bit better performance than relational databases trying to roll up data and do OLAP queries. And we can also improve performance on many of the cloud data warehouse platforms. And by disintermediating the data warehouses or your upstream data sources and your downstream tools, whether those are BI, AI, or embedded analytics, we can help provide improvements on flexibility, time to value, and future-proofing the entire stack. And if you're not quite sure, maybe in the modern landscape, where a semantic layer sits exactly, we position our product, Cube Cloud, which is our commercial product, generally right next to the warehouses or the data sources, and then sort of in between all the downstream use cases. And when I hand it over to Andrew to talk about Explo, we see that embedded analytics is a very common problem for Cube users. That's one really common use case. We have lots of folks who are doing it with custom front-end frameworks like React, like the slideshows, or Angular or Vue or something like that. But we do find that Explo is a really great product for those teams that don't want to do it that way and maybe want to use a partner vendor and really kind of speed up time to value and make sure those things look great. So yeah, with that, I'm going to pass it over to Andrew to talk about Explo.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate the intro. Just quick recap. So I'm Andrew, one of the co-founders and COO at Explo. So super excited to talk about our partnership and give you a little overview of how Explo works as well. So first off, what is Explo? So Explo is a customer-facing analytics platform. We typically serve SaaS companies or really any sort of B2B solutions in providing dashboards and reporting software for their end users. Common use cases, for example, if you have a B2B SaaS solution, you need to provide a dashboard for your clients. Instead of building those out in frameworks such as React, as Brian mentioned, you can use our low-code interface to create those interfaces and just white label and embed them into your solution. This is a little bit different than the traditional sort of BI tools out there, as we do focus exclusively on customer-facing analytics. So most of our clients will be embedding our solutions. So we do see this more a decision of build versus buy. So are you going to build your dashboards out in React, or are you going to use something like Explo? I'm going to dive deeper into our dashboards product, but we do have a few different products that we offer. The dashboarding solution is sort of the solution you see on this page here, where you're creating dashboards, interfaces for your users. The report builder functionality is more of a self-serve tool. So if your clients want to build their own metrics and reports within your application, you can embed that entire interface. And then lastly, we do have some AI products as well. For example, your clients can go into your application, ask some questions around your data, and we'll process that and create things like charts, graphs, and insights for those users. So how does Explo work? So in this specific case, what we'll do is we'll connect to Cube directly. We'll use their sort of SQL BI connector. Once that's set up, only takes a couple of minutes. You'll use our low-code interface to build out the dashboards and reporting interfaces. Once that's built out, we do typically embed, but we also offer a lot of different ways to share those final sort of metrics and reporting out to your users. So that includes exporting options from CSVs, PDFs, Excel files. We create standalone portals for some of our clients. We have email features, and of course, the white label embedding as well. In terms of what is offered in Explo and why someone would choose Explo, so one is we do have a sort of complex customer permissioning and data security layer. So similar to Cube, we do provide a lot of the sort of row-level security and permissions there, and we do integrate and sync very nicely with Cube as well. So it is super crucial that when you're providing dashboard analytics to your users, everyone is seeing the correct data, and data security is absolutely top of mind for us as well. Explo is also fully white labeled, so you won't sort of see any Explo branding on the dashboards or reports, and you can really customize the look and feel of any of our solutions to match your brand exactly. We provide a lot of flexibility in terms of essentially CSS that you're able to customize. The UI is also designed for different audiences than traditional BI tools. When you look at a Tableau or a Looker, those are great for data teams, data scientists, data analysts, but they're not really designed for, let's say, your product team to build product with, or more importantly, for your end users to actually understand and utilize the dashboards because they are typically less technical members of their team. So our interfaces are really designed, again, with the product teams in mind to actually build and embed our solutions, and then for end users in mind in terms of what they actually see, how they interact with dashboards, and how they're able to understand the data that they're presented. And then lastly, we do allow our end users to really customize any sort of dashboard and reporting as well. We handle all the management. So let's say you have 100 different clients, they all want to see their own dashboards and custom reports. We'll manage that. We'll make sure that everyone sees their own custom dashboards, sees their own data. So there's really a scalability factor as well. And Explo can serve clients with tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of clients. Real quick, so just an example of how we've helped clients before. So Speckit is one of our clients. They provide a B2B software solution for employee training and onboarding. So all of their in-app dashboards and reporting is built within Explo. You'll see a quick screenshot here. So it is, again, fully white labeled. Everything looks and feels like their application. So their users actually have no idea they're looking at a third-party solution. The main goal for Speckit was really to outsource this so they didn't have to use engineering and design resources to build out their dashboards. So not only saving on engineering salaries, but they were also able to deploy something like this in less than 2 weeks, whereas going through the traditional development cycles could take months, if not an entire year. And then they're also enabling each of their users to essentially have custom dashboards, custom reporting, which would have been even a longer project as well. So enough about Explo. I'll actually pass it back to the Cube team. We can dive directly into products, and I'll show you a little bit more about how this works.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Let me get my screen shared up here, and we can get going. So we'll be starting our demo today with how do we get started in Cube. And that's going to start with creating a deployment. So deployment is just an instance of Cube, and it runs in the cloud on our account, so it doesn't affect your hosting, or you're not charged for the underlying compute or anything, but you do get to pick where in the world, which cloud platform, which region you want to utilize. So we'll just provide it a name so we can distinguish it from any other ones that we create. We'll start with creating our one from scratch. We offer a number of different connectors. As Brian was talking about earlier, we've got a plethora of databases available to us today, and most of us have data stored in multiple databases. So the flexibility is important. Today, I'm going to just go ahead and create a demo deployment, which actually uses DuckDB and some files that are hosted in S3. And while this is spinning up, it usually takes a minute or two. We've got one already set up, so we'll just kind of do the cooking show magic and jump over to one that's already completed. But what we're going to run into, what we're going to be presented with when that finishes, is a set of cubes. So cubes are connecting to the source data. So for example, select star from this public file, so that CSV file. This could be a database table. This could be, in this case, a CSV or a Parquet file. And for each of these cube files, we'll generally have a single connection to an upstream data object. So just to kind of orient yourself, we provide a graph to help show the relationships between these objects, which fields are the keys, where the relationships will lie. And then when you create views, which I'll go into in a second, it'll show kind of the history or the where those fields originate. So as far as cubes versus views, so cubes are kind of your basic object where you're doing your joins, you're itemizing your dimensions, you're creating measures, things with actual business value that you want to keep under source control. And as Brian mentioned earlier, we've got some Jinja templating and some macros here for creating some loops across a set. We've got pre-aggregations defined in code. Everything's defined in code. And for the cubes, those are independent objects. What we want to do is itemize or explain those relationships in code and then present them as views to the downstream tools. So we want to simplify and abstract away all the, is this a many-to-many or one-to-many join? We just want to present finalized data sets that include our metrics or our measures for the business users downstream. So this is what we're going to expose the views to tools like Explo. So that way we're abstracting away that the technical logic here. Let's see if we need to cover anything else here. The playground real quick. As you're building that data model, you can test out your queries, see what type of data response is brought back here. You can see this query was accelerated with pre-aggregation, so it referenced our Cube Store data that we've cached in Cube Store already, and comes back very fast relative to normal database query speeds. And then finally, when you are ready to present this data out, you've got the REST API, the GraphQL API. If you do want to, go your own route and build something from scratch, especially a React app or something, but for most BI tools and in Explo included, we have the SQL API, and so this is something where you're able to connect to Cube as if it's a SQL database. Connects to port 5432 and everything with a username and password, and we're able to query those fields in that data set, even though it's definitely not a Postgres database on the back end. It just looks like it's Postgres to the BI tool. And one more thing I'll add before I'll hand it over to Andrew to pick up there is for access control. So there's row-level security options in both Cube and in Explo. If you're only needing to build it into Explo, that seems like a great place to do it. They have a dedicated tool set for that. If you need to go more advanced or need to do things like data masking or create rules where you want to pass back parts of the username or JOT tokens with more user attributes and need to handle things, very complex scenarios, you can do pretty much anything you can imagine in our cube.py or cube.js files. So that's going to allow you to write custom logic to show, is this field hidden? Is this cube available? Should I be using a different database for a different user, a different team? All that stuff is possible in Cube, but we're going to keep it simple today. We're going to talk about row-level security as well. So with that, I'll hand it over to Andrew. Thanks.
Thanks, Tony. Let me just pull up my screen. So we'll pick up exactly where he left off with the SQL BI connector. So I'm going to present Explo. All right, so this is the Explo interface. You'll see on the left-hand side the navigation panel. So we have a few setup steps. I'll start with the data source page, and then we'll dive and spend most of our time on the dashboards page. So I already have a database connected here, but let's just connect that Cube instance here. So what I'll do is I'll just give it a quick name. I'll just say demo, and we'll create a Cube schema. We'll select Cube Cloud from our list of database integrations. And then we'll actually just copy and paste those same credentials that were presented on Tony's side. So give me a second here while I just copy these in. So yep, this is copied directly from there. As you can see, it is port 5432 as well, similar to Postgres. And then the username and password. All right, so we can skip over this for now. If we hit next, give it a second, you'll see it found one table. This table is essentially the view that was created in Cube. So we'll hit connect there, and then we'll actually just sync this. So if we hit sync tables again, we'll see that table that it found. You'll typically see a long list of tables here, but just for the demo, we have a single table. So it's a continue, and we sync this up to Explo. Just to clarify here, so Explo is not actually copying any of the data or anything like that. We're really just syncing the views, so we understand which fields are present and which views we actually we're able to access. Secondly, so we do have a customer management system within Explo. So similar to your application, Explo is designed for external users. So in this case, let's say we're building out dashboards for a sort of e-commerce platform. We have a list of stores that you want to surface these results to. You'll see I have 2 customers created here already. And in this case, a customer is a store, but I can create a third one just to show you how that's done. So the only fields required are a name, and we'll just do a quick ID. This is not a real ID, but we can put out whatever we need there. And then we can also add properties. These properties can link directly to essentially different fields that we see in Cube. In this case, I'll create a key called, we'll just do city, and we'll say New York. So let's say the store number 3 is based in New York, so we only want them to see New York data. We'll hit confirm, and you'll see that third store gets created here. When this is fully integrated into your application, you'll actually create all of these customers or customer groups with our API, but you can always create them here as well. I'm going to jump over styles real quick, and I'll touch on that at the end, but I'll just jump into the dashboards piece. So now that everything is sort of set up in terms of data connection, we can actually just start building a dashboard. So I'll actually start from scratch and build out a demo dashboard here. So first thing you'll notice is a SQL editor down below. This is going to be how you'll set up our sort of version of data sets. If this is all set up in Cube essentially already, you can just do a simple select star. So you'll see if I jump over to the Cube database, or Cube connection, we have the orders table again. So I'll just say, we'll use this orders table. And then I'm going to set up a quick filter here. So as mentioned, we want to make sure that each store only sees data from their city. So we can do something like where, and then let me just grab that field name. So it's users underscore city equals, and we'll reference this using this sort of Explo specific syntax here. So hit save and run. This will sort of compile and then actually run the query. And you'll see we have a quick preview of this data, and the user's city field is just New York. So once we have this initial data set set up, we can minimize that for now, and we can just go into building charts and graphs. So I'll drag a bar chart on to create a simple visualization, and I'll make it about half the page there. The rest of this is really just drag and drop. So let's say we want to grab the created at field, and then we'll just get a quick count of orders. So what we'll do here is we'll generate a quick chart of orders by month. And maybe we want to break that down further. I think I saw a status category. So we can group these orders by status. And you'll see we have a stacked bar chart here. Quick formatting options. So we do allow a lot of different formatting for each of the charts and graphs. So this is similar to what you'll see in something like Excel. So first off, we can rename this as orders. And then let's just say instead of sum of count, we'll call this orders as well. All the other formatting options, such as using dollar signs, percentage signs, adding legends, those are all available on this tab as well. In addition to interactions you can provide to your users. So for example, one common interaction is enabling the ability to understand and see the underlying data behind these charts and graphs. So if I click on this, you'll see that it enables a sort of modal. Your users can actually click into, let's say, July 2021 sales. They want to see which orders have shipped. They can click on that, view the underlying data, and this will actually expose some of the underlying data on the order level. And of course, you can format this table. You can hide certain columns, show other columns, things like that as well. And you'll see across the dashboards, you'll see these download signs. So if your users do need to export any of the data, all of the exporting options are built out of the box with Explo. The last thing I'll show you quickly is setting up controls. So it is important for your users to be able to cut and slice the data however they like. So we do offer various controls like drop-downs, switches, search bars. For this example, I'll grab a date selector. This will allow them to select specific subsets or date ranges for this chart. So to set this up, it's pretty straightforward. I'll just drag this onto the screen. We'll select both preset values. So those are things like today, yesterday, year to date, and they can also manually define a time range as well. We'll select that, we'll use this as an is between. This is a quick operator that we need to select. And then for this example data set, we'll use the created at field. So that's the time field that we've used to create this chart. And then to link the chart to the dropdown, all we'll do is click on the chart itself. And so now you'll see if I select something like year to date, it'll filter this data down for year to date. We can set this as the default option as well. Let's see, where did that go? Oh, we can also do something like last 12 months. And then we also have other smart features like, for example, if you want to group this differently depending on the time range selected, we can choose something like smart grouping. This will basically choose how granular to group the data based on the time range selected. So it can be grouping by day, hour. In this case, it chose month, but that just does that automatically. So this is super quickly how you create any sort of visualization in Explo. Of course, most dashboards will have a variety of charts and graphs. But for sake of this demo, we'll just create this one chart for now. And then once this is created, you'll see again that you can actually view by different customers. So I created store 3 a few minutes ago. If I view by store 3, you'll see it actually filters that data down for that specific store instead. And I have a few different examples here. So each of your clients will see the right subset of data. So once you do have the initial dashboard built out, let's say this is the first version, we'll hit done editing, and then we can use our version control system to create a draft. So we'll just say first draft here. You can write whatever notes you have. We'll save that, and then you can publish to different environments as well. I won't publish now as it's not embedded, but you can set up as many environments as you like. And all of the updates and iterations for future dashboards will be just controlled here. So let's say you want to add a new chart or graph. You'll add that in the system, and then you can just publish directly to staging first, get that tested out, and then you can push production once you have that tested out. And lastly, you do want to embed or set up different sort of reporting mechanisms like emailing. So that's all enabled here. If I just click embedding, we have a few different options for embedding, including an iframe and a web component. But this works across all front-end frameworks such as React, Vue, etc. So essentially, no needs. You don't have to change anything. Within your existing application, you'll just need to paste this into that front-end framework. So it is pretty flexible, and you can really embed this into any sort of application or web page. And the last piece I will show you here is the Styles tab. So as mentioned before, Explo is fully white labeled, and it is very customizable in terms of the look and feel of the dashboards. So we do want to make it so that when your clients or users are looking at these dashboards, they have no idea you're looking at an Explo solution. So these are some of the sort of variables you can tweak. So first off, you can change things, of course, like color. So let's say we want to change a background color, but also you'll see more nuanced changes like spacing, padding, line width. Within text, you can upload your own custom fonts as well. And you'll see it gets pretty granular for different H1s and titles and body text as well. And of course, you can upload your own color palette. So we typically work with our customers to make sure that this is fully branded like their existing company. So that is super high level how you create a dashboard with Cube and Explo. So with that, I'll pass it back to Brian, and we can jump into, I believe, questions.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. As Andrew said, we're going to go ahead and move over to the QA now. So we've got, it looks like 25 more minutes here together today. So if you have questions either about Cube or about Explo or about how they work together or about anything else, go ahead and get those in the QA, and we will answer them to the best of our ability. Andrew, I wanted to get started. I do have a question for you. Can you kind of talk to us and to everybody out there about what getting started with Explo looks like, and just what is your what's your onboarding process look like, and generally like how fast are customers kind of getting to value with Explo?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of Explo, it is pretty easy to get set up. We typically do a quick onboarding call with any of our clients, and we'll set you up either on our free tier. We do offer a free tier, or we have a free trial of our solution as well. So for that onboarding, all we ask is that you have something like your Cube BI credentials ready. We'll get you set up, data source connected, and then we'll actually just walk you through building a dashboard, very similar to what we've done today. So that's really the entire setup process. Most of our clients can get up and running in less than 30 minutes. And then in terms of building and getting to value, I think it depends on a few different factors, but we do have clients who build dashboards and launch them in a couple of days. The embedding process is pretty straightforward as well. The most important piece is really, is their data ready to connect to Explo? And I think that's where Cube comes along and helps out very nicely. Anyone who has the existing data models and sort of Cube fully built out should be able to plug and play with Explo pretty quickly. If their data is a complete mess, it's spread across 10 different databases and data sources like you sort of showed us here, which is the case for a lot of companies, then it'll take a little bit of time to get that set up. But then once that is set up, you can just plug it directly into Explo.
Cool. Yeah, I know. A lot of our joint customers, if I had to sort of characterize, I think one of the strong value props between Cube and Explo is, if you're adding customer facing analytics and maybe you're like a product owner and you're thinking about how to do that, if your data is primarily in something like Mongo or in a operational database, like maybe it's all Postgres and you haven't really got to the OLAP part of the stack yet or to the warehouse part, you're probably not going to want customer facing reports like slamming that operational system. So using intermediary like Cube and taking advantage of Cube Store is a really strong play there.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely encourage our clients to make sure that their data infrastructure is set up first in order to use Explo, just because we do want them to have the best experience across the board. And there are sort of workarounds, like I know Mongo has a BI connector as well, but there's certainly some limitations, and it's really not optimized for embedded analytics or customer-facing analytics.
Yeah, okay, looks like we've got some questions from the audience here. So we've got a viewer out there that asks, can end users customize the Explo dashboards in any way?
Yep. So I didn't actually get around to showing that, but we do have features such as what we call editable sections. So when I built out the dashboard, what I created was more or less a static dashboard. If you check off that editable feature, what your clients can do is they can actually take the charts and graphs that you've created. They can reformat their dashboard, but they can also select which charts to show and then which charts not to show as well. So you'll essentially be creating a library of charts instead of that fully formatted dashboard. So that's absolutely an option. And then the other option is with our report builder. That is more of a self-service analytics product. So you'll embed the entire report builder interface. It is a very sort of simplified version of what I showed you today, but your users will be able to create their own charts and graphs, sort of dig deep, create their own pivot tables, and then they'll be able to embed those solutions within, or you'll be able to embed those solutions within your own product. And again, we will save state for both of those options. So for editable sections, we'll save it on user levels, or it could be entire customer levels. And it's the same thing for the report builder. If each of your users want specific reports, we can save it on that level, or we can save customer level reports as well.
Cool. I've got another question from the audience. This user is asking, can they add translations to, or for several languages, to custom text, which they will create for dashboards? I don't know. Do you guys handle localization or have a view on that?
We do have some localization features. Transparently, we don't do full translations or anything like that currently. But for all of the sort of things like dates, currencies, and those sorts of localization features, those are offered right now. So we can use your user's local language, or you can pass in specific currency codes and things like that. So we'll translate those directly on the dashboards. But we don't do automatic sort of text translation yet.
Yeah, that's a very hard problem. I can say from earlier in my career as an analyst, I've definitely got pretty familiar with Google Translate and copying, pasting things into multiple Tableau dashboards for a client. So not the best way, but it's you do what you can.
Yeah,
Another.
There's definitely
yeah,
a lot of
go
AI
ahead.
features. Oh, just real quick, I think there's some AI features we're looking into, and some providers as well who can really help with the translation piece. So hope to have some updates soon.
Cool. Can users subscribe to dashboards? And can you talk about subscription and email updates and like what your features look like there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do offer scheduled reporting for all of our dashboards and reporting solutions. So anything you saw, whether it's simple charts and graphs or entire dashboards, you can create email sequences. So those are things like monthly, weekly, daily email sequences. We'll handle all of that, and we can actually send from your own domain as well. So we can white label those also. Alternatively, if you want to handle sort of one-off emails and things like that, we have an API to trigger emails also. So we do want to give you the flexibility to allow us to handle the scheduling, or you can do that yourselves also.
Cool. Tony, I've actually got a Cube question here from the audience, and I'm curious your thoughts, and maybe I'll chime in also. But we had a viewer out there ask, where does DBT fit into the stack with Cube?
Yeah, I think from that architecture standpoint, or the ecosystem standpoint, it's going to be upstream from Cube, where we are pulling from their manifest file. We can either pull that directly and create your initial round of cubes from that, or you're just going to be using DBT for your materialized transformations back in your data source, and then that's where Cube can pick it up and add the semantic layer.
Yeah, I mean, as Tony mentioned, we sort of integrate with DBT as an upstream transformation tool, and we have a DBT Cube integration package that works with DBT Core. If you want to add a semantic layer to that, and that's generally sort of how we see interoperability between the products. We've got another question here about Explo. Andrew, can you kind of talk about authorization through Explo? The users just says that what they're doing is they're embedding frames and iframes in a front end. Can you maybe just talk a little bit about like what authentication and authorization looks like?
Yeah, so we do have a sort of API you need to integrate with to handle the sort of integration and authorization process. So what you'll do is you'll sync up to our API, and you'll actually create customers, sort of like I showed you in the demo. Once those customers are created, we either have two options. One, we can provide a static token, so you can actually authorize those users via that token, and you'll essentially paste that into the iframe or the web component when you actually embed that code. Otherwise, we can provide a GWT option as well. So that's essentially an expiring token that you need to refresh and ping. And essentially, we'll handle the same sort of authorization through that token. So you're never passing back and forth a customer's name or an identifier through your sort of front end. That's all done via the token, and then you're retrieving those tokens from your back end.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, we got another question here about Cube. I'm going to address this one to Tony. Tony, you want to talk about maybe when it makes sense for users to use the Cube Store cache versus materialized views in the data warehouse?
Yeah, absolutely. So the materialized views in the data warehouse are great for if you're translating something like JSON or something unstructured into more of a relational data model, or you want to just pull out things that aren't going to be indexed or queryable very well. So those are great transformations to make on the data side, on the data transformation later. And then as far as the Cube cache, even normal queries back to your database to accelerated tables or purpose-built tables, those are going to be much faster in Cube Store just by virtue of the purpose for which Cube Store was built. And also from a perspective of your aggregation permutations, if you've got a bunch of different dimensions or time series or levels of detail that you want to have pre-aggregated, you're going to have to pre-compute all those, and you're going to have quite a bit of a fan out of materializations to compute and keep updated in your data warehouse. And so that's pretty easy to do in Cube without that big fan out.
Cool. We have another Cube question. A user asks, what % of Cube users are using Cube on top of a data warehouse versus operational warehouse, example, Postgres? That is sort of tough to say. I think from our telemetry, our most common data sources are Snowflake and Databricks, like 1 and 2. And then some of the other cloud data warehouses from the hyperscalers, like folks like BigQuery, Redshift are very common. And then you start getting into Postgres, and you see some different flavors of Postgres, like whether that's like Neon or serverless Postgres, or Aurora or different things, or RDS. Some MySQL, of course. And in this embedded situation, Mongo is pretty popular, just trying to get data directly out of systems like that. Yeah, so I mean, I don't have any hard numbers for you, but they are all pretty common. And then I think what's interesting about Cube also is there's this like very long tail of sort of like more exotic databases. Like we actually see a lot of ClickHouse, Druid, things like that. Time series databases are pretty popular. And then of course, query engines right on top of data lakes, things like Trino, Presto, Starburst. Those are all in the mix as well. All right, let's see. We're going to ask, let's go and answer one more here. We had somebody ask, is there a limit to how much data you can store in Cube Store? Tony, do you have a sense for what the practical limit is?
I think I would be purely guessing if I was saying a number. We've got some very large clients with some very active Cube Store clusters. So I don't know that we've run into a problem we haven't been able to have capacity for yet.
Yeah, I think the answer is we haven't hit it yet. So send us your workload and we'll see if we can break it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we'll go ahead and start winding Q&A down, and I'll let Nathan take over and play us out.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending our webinar today, and big thanks to the Explo team and Andrew for joining us. Super helpful. And we appreciate you being here. For those of you that want to check out our resources, make sure to read more about our Cube and Explo integration over on Cube's blog page. You can also try the Explo platform out. A link is there, and it's included right on the platform for you. And lastly, if you're attending AWS reInvent at the end of the month, the Cube team will be there. So reach out to us right on our website if you want to schedule a quick meeting or maybe do dinner. We'd happy to accommodate that and find a time that works best for you and the Cube team. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thank you for attending, and we'll see you soon at another webinar. Bye.
Hey, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.